mode at the moment.
Yeah, I will switch
Yeah,
to
perfect.
presentation mode.
Okay.
Okay.
So 3 seconds.
Normally now it's,
Ah,
let me
yes.
see. Okay, it
Perfect.
should be
Perfect.
fine now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first talk of this morning. We have Mr. Pascal Maillot, and he's going to tell us more about a strategic European approach to quantum technologies. Pascal, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, very good. And I hope you can see me via the camera also. Thanks for inviting me for this presentation. I will quickly introduce myself. I'm Pascal Maillot, the Deputy Head of Unit of High Performance Computer and Quantum Technologies. And today I will give you an insight about the strategy of the EU on in quantum technologies. So the main structure that is guiding us for the strategy in quantum technology is what we call the digital decade. The objective is to have by 2025 the first computer with quantum acceleration, and to have in 5 years later, in 2030, quantum computer. And these will be set up via multi-country project coordination. We will set up a group shared by the Commissioner Breton to steer this European roadmap. And we will have also a Commission expert group to ensure the coordination with all the member states for the development of these targets. I present here a slide which might be a bit difficult to understand because there are many things. I will get more into details later, but what I would like to comment here is that under the guidance of the digital decade, as I explained, we have different programs. We have Horizon Europe, which is based on research activities with the different pillars of quantum technologies, the traditional one, computer, simulation, communication, and sensing. But the quantum flagship that is developed under Horizon Europe has an objective of not only research, but to go to market, what we call lab to market. And for that, we have also infrastructures deployment, like the quantum communication infrastructure that I will talk more later, and the quantum computing infrastructure. And this is supported via work with industry and also international cooperation. So the quantum technology flagship, as I mentioned, is based on the research activity, but with an objective to go to the market. And as I was explaining, we have the four traditional application areas: sensing, simulations, computing, communications, where we have calls in each of them. And we have the horizontal domain area, which is basic science. You can see on the slide, as I was explaining, all this is giving output to deployment of infrastructures like EuroQCI or EuroHPC, the supercomputer with quantum accelerators. Industries is involved with manufacturing and pilot lines. I will also give more details about it later. And we have all these horizontal activities. I mentioned basic science, but we have also engineering, education and training, and software and theory. Here you can see, you can have a quick look at the work program 21-22. So now the calls are closed, but you can see that we had calls in sensing technologies, in quantum computing technologies, basic science, and software to make the programmation of the quantum computer. And all these activities are supported by what we called support and coordination action, which is the CSA that you can see on the third line of the slide. For international cooperation, because we are not only close to Europe, we set up cooperation with Canada with common calls, and all these calls are closed now. Here you can see the draft work program for 23-24. It's still in draft because it's still under negotiation, but you see that we will invest in again in quantum computing with different platforms. Here it's about the semiconducting platform, and it's because in 21-22 we enhance the superconducting and ion trapped platforms in quantum computer. There will be more stress also on sensors and metrology technology, and also on quantum communications. The type of actions you see, there are different types. This is the way how it's set up. I can give more explanations about them later if you wish, but I don't think we have to take too much time on that for the moment. So as I said, there is a whole part of research which leads to deployment of infrastructure. The first one is the quantum computing infrastructure under EuroHPC, where the goal here is to acquire quantum computers and but before quantum accelerators linked with supercomputer. For the you see the timeline that we expect from 21 to 24, having the first generation of quantum computers and quantum simulators interfacing with HPC, and from 25 the second generation of quantum computer, in this case autonomous quantum computers. All these in the EuroHPC setup is coordinated with all the member states participating to the EuroHPC, with the coordination with the different national competence centers. The second infrastructure that I'd like to talk about is the EuroQCI that some of you might already know. The EuroQCI objective is to build a pan-European quantum communication infrastructure on the ground segment with interconnection between the different member states. And this ground infrastructure will be completed via a space segment to be able to reach long distance, because for question of technology limitations for the moment, we can't reach long distances just with the ground segment. And the objective, the first service of the QCI is to use the technology of QKD, the quantum key distribution, all over Europe. That's what I was saying. These ground infrastructures will be complemented via a constellation of LEO satellites to distribute the keys via the space segment. So a number of optical ground stations will be installed in the different member states to receive the signal of from the space. And I mentioned that it would be a constellation of satellite because there won't be autonomous satellites, but there will be communication between these satellites to cover Europe. These calls for EuroQCI for the deployment are closed now for 21 22, but there will be calls in for the program of 23 24. But I will, even if it's closed, give you a quick insight on these different calls. For the topic one, the goal is to create and to mature the QKD system in Europe, because we mainly have QKD systems from outside the EU. So the first topic objective is to build these EU devices. The topic two is to help the different national QCI to build the infrastructure in each member state. The topic three is a support action for to help for the coherence and in the deployment of these different member states, but also to provide work on standardization and testing of QKD, and more specifically for the testing and certification of the QKD. In the second half of this year, in the topic four, we will deploy a testing and certification infrastructure for QKD, where all the different stakeholders will be able to bring their devices to check interoperability with the others, to work on the standards and the certification later. Another aspects of the policy of quantum for Europe is the very well known CHIPS Act. It was very lastly mentioned in the press. Here is for the quantum technologies. It's to have capacities in Europe to manufacture quantum chips based on the standardized process, miniaturization of these chips, and being able to integrate them in the overall electronic, and to support the development of the more traditional semiconductor chips. And for that, for the CHIPS Act in Europe, we made calls, there are still calls, but we began the calls for pilot lines and testing and experimentation facilities. So the goal here is a bit like with QCI for the technology QKD, is to give to the different stakeholders in the EU, researchers, SMEs, industries, testing lines where they will be able to bring their devices and test them and to improve them. And after, when the product is considered ready, we will develop pilot lines so that they can produce these devices on the larger scale. Education and training for quantum technologies is also a very important step. It's more horizontal, if I can call it like that, but it's clearly a requirement for the development of quantum technologies in Europe. And we work on the quantum competence framework to map with the competence and skills in quantum technology, and to have a common competence framework to facilitate the communication among the different stakeholders in the education, and also in the education ecosystem. Elsewhere in the EU, there is a coherence with the development of the EU strategy and the ones of the different member states. You can see here on this slide resume with what I mentioned, the Quantum Flagship, more focusing on research with 850 million euro. DEP is the Digital Europe program, is for the deployment of the QCI, but also for the quantum computer. So 500 million for QCI, around 400 million for the quantum computer. We have also Connecting Europe facilities. This is for the specific part of QCI where we will need the interconnections between the different member states, and also for the optical ground station for the receptions of the photons from the satellites. And I give here some indicative budgets for the member states. We see that we have the same type of strategy in some member states in coherence with the EU one, even if obviously the figures are not the same, and sometimes they put more stress on one pillar than the others, depending on their own competencies. We have Netherlands, for example, with 600 million euro, France, who announced 1 year ago, more or less, 2 billion euros, and also Germany of 2 billion euro. And to structure this communication between the EU and the different member states, we have the national research stakeholders with the Quantum Community Network, the different stakeholders in the industry gathered in the Quantum Industry Consortium. We have to date 148 industry players. To build the research strategy and now the innovation strategy, we work with a group of experts called the Strategic Advisory Board, and the CSA, the support action to help us to coordinate all these entities and stakeholders, is called QCAT. As I said...
Sorry, Pascal, we need to wrap up soon.
Okay, so I will go quickly to say that we are not only focusing on the EU and member states, we have also international cooperation, like with Canada. We are working also on the mutual trust with Japan and US, but for the moment it's still under development. Voilà. And these are a bit some insight on the US collaboration, but as I don't have time, you can obviously contact me or ask questions later. Thank you. Sorry to take
No
a bit
problem.
more
No,
time.
it was really interesting. Thanks, Pascal. So before jumping into the next sessions, I guess my obvious question is, how do you see the quantum technologies market in Eastern Europe?
Yeah, for Eastern Europe, I would like to say a few words. We strongly encourage the Eastern Europe to be involved in all these programs. You have seen that there are many possibilities, and I will give an example for research. We stress on the excellence criteria for the involvement of what we call widening countries. So this is mainly about Eastern Europe. For the researchers in Eastern Europe, as I explained, we put in place infrastructure with we are making procurement for quantum computers, for QCI activities. This is for quantum communication. So we strongly encourage all the experts in Eastern Europe to participate to this program. We will put at their for their availability computers, quantum infrastructure, so quantum communication infrastructure. So it's an opportunity for them to participate without buying by themselves these devices. And the third point I'd like to mention for stakeholders from Eastern Europe is to register as experts for the different evaluations of the quantum flagship calls, but not only these ones, also the one for computers, communication, and so on. These are my three main messages that I would like to pass to countries of Eastern Europe, Araceli.
Thanks a lot. I think the message is there is a clear opportunity. There are means out there to boost the quantum community in this region. So yeah, it's just about where to find and how to move forward. I guess if anyone has a particular question about where to find these, how to become an expert for reviewing on European Commission calls and things like that, just send a message on a private message on the here on the AirMeet platform, and I can address directly this to you. Okay, thanks a lot,
Okay, thanks a
Pascal.
lot.
I hope that you enjoyed the event. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.